We run a series of breakfast events like this, which are always educational, because we believe firmly that if we can showcase good marketing practice, some of you will come and work with us. And we always partner with fellow organisations who work in similar fields but are collaborators. And so today I'm really delighted that Chris Young has come along and is going to lead off the talk about what your brand says about you, and then I will follow with a little bit at the end about how to apply his thinking in practical day-to-day marketing. Any questions you have, just wave a hand and let's take them as they come, and there will be time at the end for individual questions privately to the presenters as well. Now, we are recording the session, so if you want to review it, share it with friends, see it again later, we'll send you the link in an email after this morning. Thank you again for coming.
Cool, thanks Rebecca. Nice. Morning everybody. As I'll just echo Rebecca's sentiments there, thank you for coming out and joining us. Despite the thunder and lightning and gale force winds and the things that keep children up at all hours. Right. Quick introduction, so that I set the stage, so that you know I'm not, just some bloke who's talking about stuff he's pulled off the internet. I have 22 years in the design and advertising industry, and a bit of church work too. It's thrown in for good measure. Starting off in Cape Town, working through London, Auckland. I had a studio down in New Plymouth in Taranaki for a while, which was nice to be close to the grandparents for the kids. But then brought back up to Auckland, and for the past little while have sort of trimmed things, slimmed things right down to just working solo. And over the last few months, alongside the awesome team at the Ice House, has sort of been re-established and growing my business again. So I've had the interesting process in the last 6 months of going through exactly what I'm about to talk to you here this morning. So what does your brand say about you? Hopefully the sun's not going to glare too much on the screen, but let's kick into it. Right. Does anyone not recognise that? Or what that brand is? So that's the bit you're looking at. Right. For those in case you're wondering, that's the brand is Nike. And for those of you who don't know, Nike is a company that's almost 42 years old, same age as me actually. And when you look at Nike, what do you think? Tell me, throw me out. This is interactive, so what do you? Yeah, just do it. What else?
Slave labour and Nike.
Yeah.
Olympians.
Yeah, awesome.
Michael Jordan.
Sorry?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Could be Michael Jackson too. Okay, so the swoosh, yeah, that's cool. What a lot of people fail to realise is the swoosh is not the brand. The swoosh is Nike's logo. So I guess the question is, I'm going to flick to the things. What is a brand? So this is quite a long statement. I'll read it to you, and then I'll sort of talk it through. All a logo does is represent whatever the entity is, and the people's feelings about it that are completely determined by their experiences with that entity. One test we often do is, who do you think has a good logo? And inevitably, people say Apple and Nike, and the ones they think highly of. No one will ever say Enron. Paul Rand designed Enron's logo, and it is a really good one. So, and it was a very good one. But no one would ever say that because their feelings are too much affected by their history. Quick recap, those of you who don't know what Enron is, power and energy company back in the US. About 10 years ago, they had a massive scandal where it was discovered that their $111 billion worth of so-called cash and assets were actually just a bundle of lies. Now, Paul Rand is one of the greatest designers who ever lived. He designed the IBM logo, UPS, ABC, and innumerable other logos. He's kind of up there as one of the designers that other designers look to for massive inspiration. Yet, the logo, and he designed a fantastic logo, it's been created amazing awards and things for Enron, yet the association with Enron now, particularly in the US, is diabolical. They're a bunch of criminals, they're fraudsters, they're, et cetera, et cetera. Yet, I mean, this little logo, that logo I showed you earlier, Nike, people associate those with good things, but it's not the logo that makes the brand. So. Okay, which obviously begs the question. So. Thanks, dear. Okay, a couple of quotes. There are thousands of things across the net that describe what a brand is or trying to encapsulate it. I've distilled it down to two that from two particularly good sources. Martin Neumeier, in his book The Brand Gap, says a brand isn't what you say it is, as in you, the business, it is what they say it is, as in people external to the business. Next one. The Dictionary of Brand, which was put together by Google and collated by the Brand Lab, says a brand is a person's perception of a product, service, experience or organisation, a commercial reputation. So, brand's kind of nebulous, isn't it? It's kind of, I guess, a little bit out there. So, next slide, thanks. So, here's an interesting thought around your brand or what branding can help you with. A great user experience has an absolute correlation with a great brand experience. Right? So there's a lot of words that are being thrown up here. Perception, experience, relationship, history. Those are all things that sit and bed in with brand. Thanks, dear. Obviously, inversely, poor experience will have a lasting effect on a person's relationship with the brand, no matter how good or bad the product actually is. So I'm sure that you've all, at some stage in your life, had a negative experience with a perceived great brand, or a retailer, or a store, or an airline, or something like that. And conversely, you've probably had a great experience with brands as well. So, thanks, dear. Okay, so what your brand says about you comes down to branding, which is sort of a longer process. So, branding is the process of shaping people's perceptions. There's a, I guess the statement that says perception is reality, and for a lot of people that's the case. Their perception of something, say Nike, for example, their perception is aspirational. Their perception is, if I wear Nikes, I look great. If I wear Nike, I can run faster, or I can do things. Nike's sort of, I guess, core statement is, if you have a body, you're an athlete. So, which kind of makes them, that already just by saying that statement, they've created a perception around them and around their brand, which is then sort of just enhanced by that little swoosh. Right. So, branding is a bit of a process. Now, some of you might have actually gone through this process already. Some of you might be thinking about going through this process. Some of you might have gone through only one or two steps of this process. But a really good brand is built over time and starts with research, heads into strategy, then gets designed and then managed. And intentionally, the design and management are highly iterative, so they can change, they can shift. Generally, strategy is something that you kind of set, tactics can change, strategy should be reasonably rock solid. So I'll kind of break it down a little bit about your brand and how to create a brand that says a lot about you, that creates and helps that perception. So the research and the strategy, the two sort of initial beginning points, are really important because there are things that you need to know about your business, about yourself, before you can start creating perceptions. And sometimes that, there can be, you need some outside input, you need some help from people doing the research for you. Strategy creates the framework for your brand to live under. Your brand promise. What is your brand promise? So I've given you the example of Nike, that every person who has a body is an athlete. Walt Disney's product promise is to make people happy. Simple as that. Your essence, just one word. What is your essence? Is it vital? Is it fun? Is it corporate? Is it is it specialized? Your essence is something that gets distilled down, and that actually surprisingly takes quite a bit of effort to kind of get to that point sometimes. Your values kind of sit central to all of this. The values of a business are expressed by the people at the top. So even if it's a one-person business, your personal values will be expressed in your business. Even if you write it down differently, over time, your personal values will be expressed by your business. So if your values are ethical and highly moral and things like that, they will be expressed. If your values are you don't necessarily care about people, you might write down some nice set of values in the beginning, but through time that will be expressed. So good to know yourself if you're an owner operator of a business, or if you're sort of sitting at the top, or if you're helping someone at the top create the brand values. Their values will shift through. Your personality, Rebecca will talk a bit more about that in her slide. Sorry, can you just is a bit more about this? Yeah. And then your UVP or USP, pick an acronym. Your unique value proposition. That is really, really, really key to creating a brand and to creating a perception of the brand. Because if you don't know what's unique about your business, how is anyone on the outside going to know? They're going to create that perception for you if you don't get it out there and tell them. And this is a very long discussion to be had. I can't cover it in 20 minutes. So, thanks, Theo. Right, so the design creates the identity. So that Nike swoosh, that image that I showed you of the Flynet shoe, that's the identity that is created. So identity is actually something that sits underneath brand, right? Identity is sensory. So what I mean by sensory is it's what you see, it's what you hear. It's oftentimes for, say, a clothing manufacturer or something like that, it's what you feel. Marco does lighting. It's what you see in the lighting. It's, there's all kinds of things. So that's the identity is created in a sensory manner. Your identity conveys personality. So if you think of some of the brands, so let's take a look outside the building here. We've got Tower. Tower's got a nice big, strong lighthouse, and they're very, they're sort of serif typeface, and they're very corporate, and they're very, in an ideal world, for an insurance company, they are supposed to be safe and secure. Nice dark blue, which is a very, it's a money-oriented colour. So that their identity has created that personality. And the design covers multiple touch points. So it does cover your logo. That extends to your website. It extends to your business cards. It extends to your vehicle signage or your, sign writing on your building. The polo shirt that your retailer wears. The design encompasses a significant amount of things. Wayfinding, signage. That funny felt thing that's sitting over there to make it. That's all design. It's all designed. Thanks, Dan. So the design creates a blueprint for interaction and experience. So what that means is, say you walk into Rebel Sports. The Rebel Sports team, ideally, all wearing their black polo shirts or their black shirts with their Rebel Sport logo, and you know immediately where that staff member is. The warehouse. You know if you're looking for a staff member, they're wearing their red top with their little badge on. It creates that is designed. The way the shelves are set out in a store, when you walk into a fast food restaurant, the way that the signage is set up behind the counter so that you can make a choice. And there is a significant amount of thought that's put into those sort of things. Even for a small business who is, say, Ros, for example, she's a writer. She's written a fantastic book. I do recommend it to you. Rest.net.nz. The experience that's been created there with beautiful watercolour paintings and texture and colour is restful, and it invites you to learn how to rest and how to breathe. So, and obviously, the design creates the framework for how to present your brand. Next thing. Here's where the biggest part of branding comes in that is often just neglected. What your brand says about you is how your brand is managed. So once the design stuff is actually relatively straightforward. It takes a bit of work and things like that. But this is where the real work comes in. Management of your brand sits in two portions. The internal within your company, whether that's one person or 10,000 people, and then external. So the internal is about listening and watching. It's about watching your culture within your business, managing that. It's about looking at metrics and all kinds of analytics through what people are saying about your brand externally, but you still have to watch it internally. Comes down to the systems and measurements. Training. Obviously, the bigger the company, the more training is required. But even within a small business, you still need to train people about how to express your brand. My business, for example, the core of our business is building tribes. Now, as a design business, that a lot of people are like, that sort of funny look where people kind of cock their head to the side. It's like, what's that all about? I can explain that to you later, what it's all about. But I have to, with people that I employ, I need to train them what tribe building is all about, so that they in turn can express that to other people. That is a core part of what Creo's brand is about. And there's any number of brands represented here in the room by the people that have been trained or not. Iteration is massive, particularly now in the digital age. When you are faced with a constant change of websites, apps, social media, etc., etc., if you cannot be adaptive as a business in the digital age, you're going to get left behind. So if you, as an owner, as a business owner, as a brand manager, as someone who's looking at it, cannot put the time into just keeping track of things, which comes down to that listening and watching, then your chances are you're going to get left behind. So that iteration is actually a really, really key part of brand management. Right, then we get to the external. People interactions and experience. People are going to perceive your brand by the way that they connect with people from your business. So in my case, I run a small agile business, so that's easily managed. Again, I'll use the warehouse as an example. In the past, people's experience of the warehouse and the warehouse staff has not been fantastic. Now, I've been to a couple of sessions where Mark Powell, the new CEO of the warehouse, that's one of the core things that he's wanting to change, is the way that people within the warehouse work. Those people change the way that people perceive the warehouse. And the same goes for someone who works at the Nike Platinum store or the Apple store or wherever you might be going. Touchpoint relevance and freshness. Touchpoints, it's a bit of a buzzword for brand, but touchpoints are your stores, your collateral, your website, etc. You'll notice, for example, surf companies, they are forever changing their look and feel, but that is about staying on trend. Fashion businesses have to change their stuff like twice a year, sometimes 4 times a year, because it's seasonal and that's what they have to do. Certain businesses can be a lot more, I guess, slow moving with that. For example, I was talking with David, who's owns a bunch of apartments here. Your touch point relevance there isn't as quick moving as the fashion industry. But there your touch points are about quality, and it's about accessibility, and it's about the centrality to the city and things like that. So those are really key things to be looking out of. And then obviously your external is marketing, advertising, PR, which people like Rebecca and the guys at Creative Agency Secrets take what the designer starts, or the brand strategist then the designer start, and they carry it on. So, Jonathan, for example, PR practitioner, he will take on what all shape the external perceptions, and will generally work with the internal perceptions as well. So, whatever you do with your brand, however big or however small it is, it needs consistency. Even with the iteration and the change, that still needs to be headed in a consistent direction. But note the bad consistency is just it kind of speaks for itself. The consistency you're aiming for with your brand and managing your brand and creating a brand is vital that you're aiming for great. And next slide, thanks. So yeah, of course, it begs the question. Is it worth it? What's it worth? All this effort and all this energy, and needless to say, from a brand and marketer's perspective, absolutely yes, it is. And here's the reason. Great brands build tribes, and if you don't know anything about tribes, I recommend getting a book by a guy called Seth Godin. Many of you will probably be familiar with Seth Godin. He's a marketer extraordinaire, he's a blogger, he's a speaker, created a number of platforms, but a key book that he's written and that has affected my thinking and my thinking around brand and a lot of people is that around tribes. In this digital age that we are, I think we're just at the beginning of it, really. The days of mass marketing and the days of mass push are done, really. We can create niche markets and niche experiences, and we can create people around us who think, live, breathe the same as us. And that's where branding is going to come in absolutely vital, because you can create a tribe of 50 people. Because if those 50 people are spending whatever amount that you need each year, that's all you need. Sometimes those tribes go on to become movements. Apple. Apple is a movement. The brand that they've created around them is a movement. There's any number of things. So I encourage you, if you're thinking about branding, or if your business is wanting to go through the branding, think about it. Think about the things that I've put down here. I'd love to help out. There's a lot more discussion obviously to be had with this. Every business is different, and if I can help in any way, by all means, grab the details. There's some cards there, and I'd love to chat afterwards if anyone's got any more questions. So, and I'll hand over to Rebecca. Thanks, everyone.
That's fabulous, because as someone who's not a branding specialist, I work as a marketer, and I have to use brands. So it's really important that people who work in marketing and marketing communications do understand what all the thinking is that's gone into branding behind the scenes. Now we're going to move into the, from my side, more practical day-to-day application of your brand and your tribe. Here's the first question. Is this true, or is it false? Think about who's got the newest business in the room? Who started their business here in the most 6 months ago? Yeah? Have you got a brand?
We're working on it.
You're working on it. That's a good start. You haven't got it yet. What do the rest of you think? What about a very large amorphous building like the IRD? It's a business. Has it got a brand?
Yeah.
As I say at the bottom, it's what you do with your brand that matters. Whether you have actively created one or not, it is there, and it is there in the eyes of your customers, consumers, and users. Yeah. So, this brand personality is something that, of course, you can try and create, but it is something that's affected by every single time someone comes into contact with you. We've already talked a little bit about positives and negatives, but help me by calling out what are the things that create an experience when someone deals with your business. Customer service, that's a very easy one. So face to face, you're the customer, I'm the business, and we meet. What else?
Fixing their problems.
Fixing their problems. So businesses that are problem solvers, whatever it is, are you in a service business? Or yeah, okay. Give us a little more example. What's the
I just find you make relationships with clients when things go wrong more.
Yep.
What do you do?
that deepens the relationship. So your ability to solve their problem, hopefully quickly, then changes their perception. What else?
Ability to find out information about the business.
Brilliant. So ability to find information about the business. How many times have you been frustrated where you've tried to go and find a business and you can't find their email address? Lots of people nodding. I did it yesterday, trying to find my husband's business email address. I wanted to give it to someone else who wanted to hire them, and I couldn't find an email address for them. What else? Who sells products here, not services? Yeah. So when someone unwraps your product for the first time, ever had a delightful experience when you get something mail order? Can you tell us about it?
Well, I guess when I go on my phone this year, I just love especially with Apple, their minimalistic design, the way the packaging is
The packaging?
so simple, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the microphone that's hanging up over there, it's called a Blue Yeti. We bought it because we do podcasting and we record events like this. When I bought it, I had the most delightful experience. The packaging was a box, but it was a robust box. But on the outside of the box, they had all these cute little cartoons of blue Yetis doing sort of cool Yeti things, which I just hadn't expected. I thought I was buying a piece of consumer technology, and what I got was a piece of consumer technology with a personality, a little bit of a sense of humour, and it made me happy that I'd spent $350. Now that's a great experience. So, everything about customers' interaction with you and your brand, whether you are there to see it or not, is your brand personality. Now, has anyone here ever done a personality test or a psychometric profile test? A couple of you? So, in doing my research for today, I discovered that pretty much all of those tests go back to a piece of seminal research done in 1961, so before most of you guys were born, and it pulls out these 5 personality traits. And for those of you frantically scribbling, I will share the slides afterwards so you can get them. But broadly speaking, each of these explains a part of what you are as a person. And it also can be used to describe a brand. So your openness to experience is, are you inventive or curious, or are you consistent and cautious? You can see that those are polar opposites, and of course there's a scale in between those. But basically, are you into emotion or adventure or unusual ideas, or actually are you more into a lack of novelty, consistency, and reliability? Conscientiousness describes how efficient and organised you are versus how easygoing and careless. Think about Apple. I know it's a brand we've talked about a bit, but Apple appears to be easygoing, but we actually know that they're fantastically organised. So quite a contradiction there, but both within conscientiousness. Extroversion is reasonably straightforward. Are you more outspoken and outwardly orientated versus introverted, where you're more reserved or solitary? And both of these have positive attributes, although in the human race there are more natural extroverts than introverts. Balance between the two is also a very good thing for a brand to have, so that it can appeal to people of different inclinations. Agreeableness, that's quite straightforward. Are you a friendly or compassionate brand versus a cold and unkind brand? Who can think of a bank brand that's friendly? Name it. Kiwi Bank. It's absolutely right. I think TSB is trying to be friendly too in its advertising, but I actually think Kiwi Bank tries very hard to have a friendly, down-to-earth personality, and they are different from the other banks. And the last one, of course, I love the fact they call it neuroticism, but broadly it's, are you sensitive or nervous versus being secure or confident? So a reasonably easy shades of emotions that you can understand. So moving on, what we're going to take a look at now is a little test. Jonathan's going to hand you some sheets and take one for each of you. And what we're going to do is test your business brand personality as you perceive it. And if there's more than one of you from a business, don't share your answers until after you've completed it, because I think you will get insight into your colleagues' perceptions. So taking those different points, these are the continuum. So there's a range from personable and friendly on the left through to corporate and professional on the right. And what I'd like you to do is to look at each of these, and I know the lines are not equal length, but if you imagine it's a 5-point scale where 3 is spot in the middle, 1 is on the extreme left-hand side, and 5 is on the extreme right-hand side, put a little mark on the line or a number that illustrates to you where you think your business sits on each of these different continuum ranges. Chris, you haven't taken one. I'm going to be asking you to give the first answer.
I've got a pen, but I'll do it.
Someone lend a pen, please. The corporate pens didn't arrive. They're never going to arrive. just look up when you're done, then I'll know. So, let's just take a quick look. On the first line, anyone like to volunteer what they put for their business? Yeah?
3.
You're a 3, and what does your business do?
We're establishing a Dutch character restaurant, cafe, and function centre in Waikato. So it's a intersection of dairy and dairy heritage and Dutch heritage.
I'll be your first customer. Lovely.
So it's got to be corporate professional. It's got to be really quality, but it's also got to be personal and friendly.
Fantastic. And staff with lots of tall blonde people. Wonderful. What about the second line? Someone like to volunteer where they were on the spontaneous high energy versus careful thinking and planning.
5.
Yep, Chris?
5.
You're a 5. Explain.
Right in the middle.
Go on.
Yeah, the energy required to actually interact with people.
Yep.
And extract information, but then relay it and create something creative. But then the planning and thinking that sits behind that. So it's very much sort of sits right in the middle.
Perfect. Okay. What about modern high tech versus classic and traditional? Anyone? Yeah.
3.
You're a 3 in the middle.
Well, a little bit more towards modern and high tech, because in the comms area, in the communication area, public relations, you need to be leaning towards all the digital communication, but you also need to have a foot in the basic need for communication and messaging.
So it's a good reasoning. I've no idea whether Jonathan's right or wrong, but he can reason, he can justify his decision, and I'm sure he can explain that clearly to his clients. Who's on the fun versus serious scale? Someone else. Gordon.
Yeah, I've got fun down at 2. I try to, while I do a serious business, try to make as much fun for people as possible.
Fantastic.
So it's informal.
Yes.
A little bit more informal than really structured.
Great.
This allows people to be more comfortable.
That's fantastic, and that Gordon provides corporate alternative board services for business owners. And lastly, accessible to all versus upscale and possibly expensive. Yeah?
I'd say I'm more accessible.
And what does your business do?
I'm a specialist in workshop chat.
Fantastic. Yep, so there we go. Right, so moving on, you've got an idea for yourselves as to where you think you are. Hands up everybody whose dots are more on the left-hand side of the chart. So what does this say about you? Contemporary, fast-moving, energetic, you like ideas to happen quickly, you don't mind taking risks, a couple of people are nodding, your communication style's friendly and approachable, chatty, it's like talking to a friend you've known for a long time, and you're not afraid of saying what you think. Does that resonate? What about dots to the right? Hands up. Cool. So, company a little bit more on the traditional side, but with solid planning, established ways of getting things done, trying to appeal to an upscale clientele, possibly also in the corporate mould. Your communication style will be very professional and slightly more corporate than chatty, but your formality of style is more on the business suit end rather than the t-shirt and shorts end. So who's more in the middle? I'm not going to offer any judgment. But suffice it to say, my challenge to people who are in the middle is, are you sufficiently different? Do you stand out enough? We all know that we can't all be Google. It feels lovely being in a building like this, standing on green AstroTurf carpets with funky orange stools, but I absolutely respect that that's not for everybody. If you're in the middle, does it make you rememberable and stand out from your competition, or are you bland and grey? And I'm not saying that just because you're in the middle means you are bland and grey, but you do need to be absolutely clear why you're there, and perhaps that totally resonates with your prospect client list. Take those back to the office and see what happens when you share it with some of your colleagues. So, having done a little appraisal of this, your brand personality could be summarised in that little exercise. But having said that, the modern world is much more relaxed than it was when I first entered the workforce. When I came to work, my very first job after uni, women were not allowed to wear trousers in the office. We were expected to wear a skirt and a blouse and tights in the winter. You know, Princess Diana, I'm English, was the first person to not wear stockings at Ascot races, horse racing day. And that was newsworthy at the time. Whereas nowadays, you would think, why? What on earth? And of course, New Zealand is a much more relaxed corporate business atmosphere than the UK. But think about how we write. How often do you write a letter or an email or a report and you're not actually writing the way you would speak? I'm not meaning the ums and the ahs and the possible swearing and use of slang. But the language can sound terribly formal, and it doesn't sound like you.
About as a text.
If you text, who has predictive text on their phone and stopped using abbreviations when predictive text was added to your phone? I now text in real sentences. Didn't used to. What about dressing up for work? This morning I put a frock on because I'm here performing. I'm performing for you, and I think you have an expectation from me. I choose to dress like this. It's not the way everybody else chooses to dress, but that's part of the brand personality and my own personality as the business owner that we're trying to project. So how you behave affects your brand. And dressing up for work, whether it's clothing or words, or what you do with your hair, or the car that you drive, are all symbols that people make judgments against. What I'd like to challenge you to do is to create a verbal wardrobe, a list of words in a wardrobe box which you can use to talk about the business that you're in and that your colleagues can use, and which you can use consistently and which reflect back to the personality that you've chosen. Now, I'm a marketing communicator. I use words all the time. They might be written, they might be spoken, or they might be pictorial. But at the end of the day, how would a person, if your business was a person, how would they speak? Now, I'll tell you a story. When I was in the UK, one of our clients was Harrods, the department store in Knightsbridge, very upscale, very upmarket, and they had a ideal customer personality which they mapped out. And she was a middle-aged woman called Fiona with 2 children and a house in London and a house in the country. And they went into a lot of detail. But anyone who's lived in the UK or knows people, middle-class people from the UK, know exactly what Fiona's like. You can probably picture her. She's probably got streaked blonde hair, and she has 2 immaculate children, one of whom's a bit naughty, but they're not very bright. You know, and her husband works in the city, and he's got lots of money, and he makes it, she spends it. You know, that personality was what they were appealing to. Now, they also have a very substantial foreign visitor tourist market who go to Harrods in order to get a plastic bag that says Harrods on it. But their core audience were the Fionas of this world. And how would Fiona speak? And how does Harrods Marketing Communications reflect what she expects to hear? Now, here's a challenge for you back at the office. I'd like you to do an analysis of language. I'd like you to go and have a look in and around the office at the memos, the notice boards, your website, letters that you send out to customers, and have a look at how you guys actually write. Does it match the personality that you've established, you think is your brand personality? Are the two aligned? And what's it like for internal communications versus external? If you've got a staff newsletter or an intranet, you know, notice boards by the water cooler, by the coffee making machine. At our office, there's a sign that says, "We ain't your mamas, do you washing up?" Now that reflects the Biz Dojo as our landlords and our collaborators here. That's their brand personality, which is a bit, come on guys, it's a community we've all got to pitch in, done in a humorous way. But what happens then when you see there are lots of different styles of writing? it's obvious that that is confusing. What could you do to pick one style, both internal and external, and stick to it? So that your business brand personality, its communications, becomes more consistent. Now, you have to train people to do this, but that's the challenge for you back in the office. Now, content marketing is a great buzzword and a real activity nowadays. People love to engage with interesting and informative stuff that helps them on their way. And if your business, your brand, is putting that stuff out, it's a very good way of building a tribe, starting a conversation. And we spend a lot of time helping our clients do exactly that. Where they do it depends on the sort of business they are. They are not all on Facebook. They are not all sending direct mail letters. They are not all writing newsletters. They are not all, most of them actually do have websites, but some of them don't have email addresses. Yeah, that was a joke. What can content marketing do to communicate your brand personality in a way that makes your prospects want to engage with them? So where are the places where your possible customers can bump into your brand and can begin to learn about you? Now, we all understand how social media works. Somebody writes something, puts it up on a social platform, and other people read it, share it, like it. Therefore, around their circles of influence, your message can be widened out into broader ripples of people that you didn't already know. That's why Chris and Creative Agency Secrets have got together today. Half of you know Chris, the other half of you know us, and together we're hoping to both broaden our circle of acquaintance and obviously our future customer base. But what can you learn from the people who read and follow the information that your business puts out about the personalities within your tribe? They will not all be identical, and you will discover surprising things about smaller subgroups. Chris mentioned niches. People who all like you and what you do, but they are not homogeneous, and they might have some particular quirks which, if you can discover and appeal to, you will find others like them. We have a client who's a sports brand, and within their customer tribe, there are a bunch of geeks. There are techie, nerdy types who absolutely love a very technological approach. And we deliberately feed out geeky articles every 2 months to appeal to just that niche, knowing full well that people who are not that way inclined will skip that article and won't read it. But let me show you an experiment I did for another talk that I'm doing. I'm due to be talking to a bunch of accountants about social media marketing and why social media might be a relevant and appropriate marketing tool for accountants. Now, accountants are very risk-averse, conservative, and not known for leading the way in doing new marketing things. In fact, marketing as a business technique was slow coming to the accountancy profession. Glacial. This is a tweet that I put out a couple of days ago. Advice needed, where can I find a good accountant? Now, I was doing it as an experiment. I do not need a good accountant, I know several. But I wanted to see what happened as a result. And I put it onto Twitter, I put it on my LinkedIn profile, I put it on Facebook, and I also put it up on our blog. And this is what happened. That was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And by 5 o'clock, I had 2 answers. The first one came through Twitter. Roy Shepherd, shepherdaccounting.co.nz, ex-rower. And the second one came through LinkedIn. Francois, who's a guy I know, says, you should talk to Simon Manarotti, he's awesome. Now, what do you think I learned about the tribe of those 2 different accounting firms as a result of those 2 responses? They have advocates, yeah. What else?
Undeniably around.
Exactly. He has a subgroup of fans who are all into a sport. But he's an accountant. And you would never think that there was an overlapping circle of influence between those 2 things, but there is. And guess what? If you're in the sport and someone else is in the sport, you can talk sport together and you can also talk business together. It's quite possibly a very small subgroup. but it illustrates the point that I'm trying to make. Within your tribe, there are lots of different sorts of people, and your marketing communications needs to understand them and to appeal to them. This is us, the personality of the business creative agency Secrets. Our brand, we want to be seen as an educator who shares insight and good ideas. We're happy to disrupt the marketing establishment, as long as it can be proven to work. We offer mid-scale pricing with top-end expertise and longevity. That's a big statement, but it boils down to what sort of a person the business is and what it is that we do for our clients and what our clients expect when they bump into us, the brand experience that we talked about earlier. So the content marketing that we do for ourselves starts with tips and tricks. How can you use the things that we're doing for yourself? And we give away free advice. We do that because we are utterly confident that unless you're as expert as we are, you won't do it as well as we do. But the other reason we do that is we think there are 3 types of prospective clients for us out there. The first type are the ones who just want free advice because for whatever reason they can't or won't pay for it right now, but they may have the potential to become clients in the future. And we don't want to alienate them. So we give them free advice and we let them use it. The second sort of client wants to be educated, they want to learn, they want to be able to do it themselves. Some of you in this room will take what you learned this morning and will go and do it yourselves as a result of what you've learned. And some of you will come back to us for coaching. Can you just help us apply what we were learning into this particular situation that we find and how to make it work for my business? And that might be a small engagement. We might sit together for half an hour, we might have a Skype call. But you'll pay us for that because we'll give you ideas and recommendations based on the tried and tested methodologies that we're doing every single day, and you're only doing it occasionally because you have a bigger job than just your own marketing communications. And then the third sort of client actually wants someone to do the marketing for them. And they are the people that we work with over the long term. So new tools that we find online. Theo wrote a blog post a while ago. It's how to make your Facebook profile match your cover photo. And it's one of the most successful blog posts we've ever done. We don't actually often implement it because there's only a limited number of clients who want it. But that absolutely appeals to one subgroup of our audience. How-to guides, ebooks, how to use autoresponders is one that we've got on our website at the moment. The next one we're about to launch is going to be how to use cold emails to get introductions to start business discussions. We'll be launching that. Make sure that you all get invited to learn about it. But again, it's the sort of business practice that showcases our expertise, and that's why we do it. And then we have events like this. And that, again, is part of our content marketing. It's been tweeted, it's been blogged about, it's out there on Eventbrite, it's on our blog. So here are some things that you can do to build and grow your tribe once you understand your brand personality. You must have a database. I don't care if it's an Excel spreadsheet, it shouldn't be a Rolodex these days, but please make a list of people that you know who are either existing or have the potential to become a customer of your business. It shouldn't include your grandmother, but it should include people that you bump into at events like this whose business cards you collect. Many of those people will not ever be your clients, but they all have the potential to become part of your tribe. Write to them often. A lot of people are frightened of sending outbound mail because it will be perceived as spam. It can be spammy, but if done properly, people like you invest your time to come and hear people like me and Chris talk. I did an event for, actually, a breakfast for accountants talking about accountant marketing, and one of the people in the audience who was not a plant said, question, how can you use, cold emails, to do your marketing? Isn't that utterly inappropriate? And I just smiled internally and asked a question back to the audience. And I said, before today, how many of you in this room had ever heard of me or my business? And there were about 40 people in the room, and about 5 hands went up. I then explained that every single one of them had been cold emailed with an appropriate offer, which was appealing to them and made them decide to invest their time in coming. So cold emails absolutely can work, but they need to be carefully thought through and well executed. So write your list often, even if you think you haven't got much to say. Something short and succinct, telling them about how you're doing, particularly if you're bringing a product to market. I know there's a couple of you here who aren't yet ready with something to sell. Tell them about your progress with discussions in the Waikato. Tell them what's happening with the sorts of brands, Paula, that you're trying to pitch to, who you're meeting, even if you can't name the brand. Go and say, we're meeting a very large dairying company, or whoever it is, so that people know that you're getting traction and that you're continuing to develop your business.
Is the donor potential clients, or is it other businesses that you're working with that are assisting with building your business? You know, your architects and
It's both.
business management.
It's both, but you need to be able to split the list. They call it segmentation. Split it into different groups. So you might have collaborators, which, as you say, are your architects and colleagues, versus potential clients. So yes, they should all be in the database, but you need to be able to tag them so that you can pull out a subsection of the overall list for a particular type of communication, so that you don't send something that's only suitable to architects to people who aren't architects. Does that make sense? Develop new lists. You can commission people like us to go and research organisations who could or should become your prospective clients, and we can go and find the names and addresses of people in those businesses. And make clear offers. Be absolutely explicit about what it is that the person gets if they respond to your message. Doesn't matter if it's on Twitter or if it's a physical letter or if it's an email. What is it? Why should I want to do this? Why are you here today? I made an explicit offer. I might have sent it to you twice, and you considered it and thought it worthwhile. Follow up. There are quite a few people whose names are on the list at the front door who are not here. They will all be getting follow-up calls from me. Even the ones that I know, because I'll say, look, I bought breakfast and you didn't turn up. But the opportunity to have an individual conversation with them, for me, is like gold dust. Here I am in a room with all of you. I can't have individual conversations with all of you this morning, because there are too many of you and there's only one of me. Therefore, for me as a business owner, the opportunity to have a chat, to learn a little bit more about how today has gone for you and its application to your business and why you didn't walk out halfway through because you were bored, is really, really valuable, because it helps me improve what we do, and it helps me understand whether or not we might be doing some work with you in the future. And then, of course, get on with it. Doing marketing communications regularly and diligently is the key to success. You don't need to throw large dollars at it, but you do need to do what you do regularly. We have these events every single month. Might not have it in January, but the point is, people who know us know that they can expect to get the opportunity to learn something new once a month for their investment of a couple of hours of time. If this is the first time you've come along, and if you come to every event over the next 12 months, I guarantee you, you will get an education in practical marketing that you will be able to put into practice in your business in a year's time. You'll be able to put into practice tomorrow some of the things you've learned today. And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Because remember, the second prospective client for me is somebody who wants education. So here's how we could do it together. Let's do a face-to-face meeting. Let's talk through your questions, the things that we talked about that were very general, and bring them into the specifics of your particular situation. Let's see whether we can give you a list of actions that you can do, or you could do with us, but for the first 2 weeks after our conversation, and we'll list out your top 3 priorities to get sorted, bearing in mind that some of those maybe longer term that it take you a while to execute, like developing a brand identity, can't be done in 2 weeks unless you're amazing. Chris is amazing, by the way. That's the price. You can have your money back if it doesn't work, but we want to work with every single one of you here, and I'm not afraid to make an explicit offer. And my last challenge to each of you is to connect with us. Go find me on LinkedIn. If you're on Twitter, please follow me or the business, which is CA Secrets, and you can join our blog if you want to get a newsletter once a week with articles that we write, tips and tricks. Thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you for using the notepads.